We're going to do a portion of Rambam that really is from the Yad, from the Mishnah Torah, but it's the first part of the Mishnah Torah, but it's the most unusual part of the Mishnah Torah, because the Mishnah Torah is all about codifying Jewish law, and yet the first 4 chapters, what we call Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, the first 4 chapters, the laws of the fundamentals or the foundations of the Torah, really don't seem to be at all anything having to do with halachic practice of living your life as a Jew. And so that's what we want to understand. The name of the shiur tonight, and it's got a long shiur, it's called Restoring the Crown, the Rambam's attitude towards philosophy as esoteric Torah. Now, that's a mouthful, but as we move along, you're going to see what we mean. And really, all we're going to do for the bulk of the shiur, with a little bit of commentary, is we're just going to study a little bit of Rambam. And we're going to try and figure out what the Rambam's objective here is in including this in Mishnah Torah. So, and I think the Rambam tells us very clearly what his objective is. We just have to take him for his word. The first thing we have to appreciate is that the first chapter of the Mishnah Torah is called Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, this first section, and it deals with a number of different very esoteric ideas about God and the universe. The first chapter of Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah deals with trying to define the essence of Hashem. The second chapter tries to define the essence of supernatural creations of God, and specifically celestial or angelic beings. The third chapter goes into a description of the planets and the way that the world orbits and the various different stars. And the fourth chapter deals with the elements of this world and what are called the Yesodos, the elements and how they are made up of each other. And now that you have a brief sketch of what these 4 chapters are about and how the Rambam goes about describing them, let's learn a few seifim from these chapters to understand why the Rambam felt that he needed to include this at the opening to Mishnah Torah. Now let me just, again, let's be clear. If I were to ask you to define what is Mishnah Torah, has everyone here in this room studied at some time in your life a portion of the Rambam's Mishnah Torah? If I were to ask you what is the function of the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, what would you say? Simi, how would you define what the Mishnah Torah is all about?
Well, basically it codifies all of the various halachas throughout the Gemara.
Codifies all the various halachas throughout the Gemara. And that, I would agree with you, but the problem is the first 4 chapters, as I've just described them, are anomalous, if that's the true definition. So let's take a look. At the end of the second chapter, which again, the first chapter talks about God, the second chapter talks about angels and other completely non-physical creations, he writes in Halacha Yud Aleph in Perek Beis, he says, Devarim elu she'amarnu be'inyan zeh b'shnei prakim elu kimo tipa min hayam heim mima shetzarach levaer be'inyan zeh. He says, what I've explained to you up until now in these last 2 chapters is just a drop in the ocean to what really can be explained about these matters. Ubir kol ha'ikarim shebishnei prakim elu hu hanikra ma'aseh merkava. And if we wanted to try and just put a title to the things that I've explained in these 2 chapters, we would call it ma'aseh merkava, the act of the chariot. Now what is the Rambam referring to? That's the way he concludes the chapter. What he's referring to is a Mishnah in Chagiga that says that there are 2 things that a person is not supposed to lecture about publicly. One of them is called Ma'aseh Merkava, and the other one is called Ma'aseh Bereshit. The word Merkava refers to the divine chariot as is described in the first chapter of Ezekiel. I refer you to the first chapter of Ezekiel. It's extremely cryptic and mysterious as to what it means, but Yechezkel, the prophet, has a vision, and in this vision he sees a chariot, And the chariot is described very graphically, and all of the other things that accompany the vision of this chariot are described. And the Mishnah says that a person does not have permission to expound on this, the meaning of the Maisa HaMerkava, the vision of the chariot, publicly. The other thing that a person does not have permission to expound upon publicly is the nature of creation, the story of creation. Exactly how God created the world, how the world emerged from nothingness into something. That's also something that person is not supposed to expound upon. Now, one could understand that Mishnah in a number of different ways. But the Rambam understands it as a discussion of Aristotelian metaphysics. When we talk about Maisa Merkava, if you look at the first two chapters of Mishnah Torah, and you line it up with Aristotelian philosophy and science about God and about angels and about metaphysical existence, that which exists outside of the physical world, you will see that the Rambam bases the first two chapters on the metaphysics of Aristotle and the Arabic philosophers who embellished upon Aristotle's metaphysics. Now let's take a look at the end of chapter 4. So we have first two chapters talk about Maisa Merkava, God and the angels. The second two chapters, chapters 3 and 4 of the Mishnah Torah, talk about what I said was Maisa Bereshis. So let's take a look. We're going to learn actually the last 4 halachas of the end of the 4th chapter of Hilchas Yisodei HaTorah. So the Rambam writes in Halacha Yud, he says, Kol ha'devarim ha'elu shedibarnu be'inyan zeh, kemar midalihem udvar mamukim heim. He says, everything that we've said up until now, they are, again, only a drop in the bucket, and they're very, very deep. Aval einam ki'inyan omek perik rishon v'sheni. But they're not as deep as the first two chapters, because that was a discussion of God and the creations that transcend the physical world. Ubir kol elu hadvarim shebeperik shlishi urevi hu hanikra ma'aseh v'reishis. That everything that I've explained to you in chapters 3 and 4 is what we would call ma'aseh v'reishis. And if you look carefully at what the Rambam writes, you discover that he's talking about Aristotelian physics. He's talking about the movement of the planets, and he's talking about how elements turn into actual components of the physical world. He talks about the 4 base elements. He talks about the principles of matter and form, Tzura and Chomer, which are matter and form, respectively. These are Aristotelian concepts of how objects arise in this world, physical objects arise in this world. So it's clear that the Rambam understands the Mishnah in Chagiga about Maaseh Merkava and Maisa Bereshis. He understands them as a reference to philosophical concepts that are known to and are popularized by the great Greek philosophers that the Rambam is aware of because of Arabic transcribers in his time. Okay, so this is very bizarre, because it's unusual for us to look at a Mishnah and say that the Mishnah is touting Greek philosophy. So let's see how the Rambam understands this. He says, "V'kach tzivu hachachamim harishonim she'in dorshin b'dvarim elu berabim, ela la'adam echad modian dvarim elu u'melamdin osa." And therefore our sages tell us, our earlier sages, that you're not allowed to exposit upon these ideas publicly, but rather you can teach it to one person at a time and teach them. Now this immediately raises a red flag, because if the Rambam is writing this in his Mishnah Torah, so then what right does he have to publish this in a book if you're not allowed to expose it to the masses? It's a legitimate question. The Rambam is contradicting himself. The very fact that he's publishing this and disseminating it to a public audience seems to go against what he knows to be the halacha. That ein dorshin oso berabim, you're not allowed to exposit upon it publicly.
Is his warning because it's coming from something that is not Jewish? Or is his warning that it's something that is just not appropriate for the...
His warning is based on what the Mishnah says. And he's going to tell us why. He's going to tell us why momentarily, why it's not appropriate. We're going to see why the Rambam feels... Rambam is going to tell us what this is doing in Mishnah Torah as indeed the very first 4 chapters of Mishnah Torah. It comes before Shabbos. It comes before Kashrus. It comes before Yontif. These are the 4 chapters that you need to know first. And he's going to tell us why.
Has Rambam ever acknowledged that a lot of his thinking is influenced by Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and Beth? I mean, does he? We know that to be true in terms of his Aristotelian.
The question that you're asking is a misnomer, because the Rambam did not believe that he was being in any way influenced by anything other than Torah. And when you say that he's influenced by Aristotle, that would imply that Aristotle and the Torah are incompatible. You'll see what I mean in an answer to your question in just a moment. If by the end of the shiur you still have that question, let me know. Halacha Yud Aleph. U'ma bein inyan ma'aseh merkava l'inyan ma'aseh bereishis. He's already explained that ma'aseh merkava is far more, is far deeper, is far more esoteric and difficult to understand than ma'aseh bereishis. What is the difference between the two? She'inyan ma'aseh merkava afilu le'echad ein dorshin bo ela im kein haya chacham u'mevin mida'ato mosim lo roshei ha'prakim. He says when it comes to ma'aseh merkava, you're not even allowed to teach it to one person unless you know that that one person is a certain level of wisdom and is capable of understanding what you want to give over to him. And if he is, only then you give him the Rashi Prakim, which is sort of like a very, very concise explanation without going into too much details. However, v'inyan ma'aseh bereishis malamdin oso liyachid afal pi she'eino mevin oso midaito u'modian oso kol ma sheyochol leida midvarim elu. But when it comes to physics, when it comes to ma'aseh bereishis, you can teach him even if he's not capable of understanding on his own. And you tell him whatever you can fill him up with. In other words, whatever he's capable of understanding until his eyes glaze over, that's what you can inform him. Why are we not permitted to exposit on this publicly? Because not every person has the breadth of knowledge or understanding to be able to comprehend the correct explanation and correct interpretation of all the things that we have just presented. So once again, we're left with a very difficult question. It's a kasha minei ubei on the Rambam. How can the Rambam acknowledge that it's usher to exposit on these things publicly and at the same time put them in Mishnah Torah? He's leaving it for public consumption. You should know that there, shortly after the Mishnah Torah was published, this was the first chapter of Mishnah Torah, first section of Mishnah Torah, shortly after it was published, there was a tremendous outcry against the Rambam. Although no one criticized the Rambam himself during his lifetime, because everyone knew by the time that these works were published that he was a gadol hador, and that he was above reproach. Nevertheless, the work itself came under fire even before the Moreh Nevuchim was published. Because the Moreh Nevuchim was only published in Arabic before the Rambam's death. It was only translated into Hebrew posthumously. And as a result, the real fireworks only got started after the Rambam was nifter. There were 3 separate periods over the course of about 100 years of tremendous eruptions against the Rambam, all of them posthumous. But in the last, from around the year 1190 until the Rambam's passing in 1204, there was tremendous criticism and murmuring about this section. One of the objections was the Rambam is not behaving wisely. He acknowledges that this is not allowed to be exposed barabim, and yet here he goes and he publishes Ma'aseh Bereishis and Ma'aseh Merkava. What's also controversial is that who told you, Rambam, that Ma'aseh Merkava and Ma'aseh Bereishis is metaphysics and physics of Aristotle? That in itself is an outlandish concept, that the rabbis, when they address Ma'aseh Merkava and Ma'aseh Bereishis in the Mishnah and Chagiga, they're referring to Aristotelian metaphysics and physics. Let us go on. Halacha Yud Beis. Bizman she'adam misponin badvarim ha'elu. Umakir kol haberuim. When a person contemplates these ideas, these Maisa Merkav and Maisa Bereshis ideas, and he recognizes all that has been created, Mimalach ve'galgal ve'adam kayotzebo, and he thinks about angels, he thinks about the celestial spheres, he thinks about human beings, V'yireh chochmaso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chol ha'yitzrim b'chol ha'beruim, and he sees the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all of creation and all that exists. Mosif ahav ala makom, v'sitzma nafsho v'yichma b'saro le'av ha'makom Baruch Hu. He only adds love to the Creator, to the omnipresent one, and his soul will thirst, and his flesh will pine to fall in love with the Holy One. V'yira v'yifchad mishifluso v'daluso v'kaluso, and a person will have a tremendous sense of awe and fear out of his lowly state, his humility, and his meaninglessness. When he compares himself, his puny self, to the great celestial creations that God has created in the world. And he'll compare himself to the planets and to other great creations of God, but certainly when he compares himself to the celestial beings, the metaphysical beings like the angels, which do not have any kind of physical attribution whatsoever. And he'll find himself like a vessel that is filled with shame and humiliation, empty and deficient. Now here, the Rambam is at least telling us why there's value in studying these things. He hasn't told us yet why they're at the beginning of Mishnah Torah, but he's at least explained to us why there's value in studying physics and metaphysics. Who can tell me what the value is? What is the value? Anybody? What's the value in studying the first 4 chapters of Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah? What has he just told us?
Appreciate the God how nothing you are.
Yeah.
You'll fall in love with Hashem when you see His greatness, and you'll be filled with awe and fear when you consider how puny you are in the larger scheme of things. So there's value there, okay? There's value there to me as a human being, to me as a Jew, to me as an Eved Hashem. Okay? Now let's do the final halacha. And let's see if we get anywhere else. Halacha Yud Gimel. V'inyonei arba'a prakim elu shebechamesh mitzvos ha'elu, that the reason why we've enumerated these 4 chapters, which include 5 specific mitzvahs about knowledge of God and so forth, that the Rambam enumerates at the beginning of Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, Heim shahachachamim harishonim korim oso pardes. This is what the sages call pardes. You know that story about Arba'a shenichnasu lepardes, 4 great sages, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, ben Azai, ben Zoma, entered into the orchard. The orchard, what is the orchard? It is the philosophical contemplation of metaphysics and physics. Now, when you learned that Gemara, when you learned that story, is that how you understood that story? That they were studying philosophy? Now, that's the way the Rambam has always understood that story, and that's another reason why the Rambam has come under attack, because the conventional understanding of most Rishonim is that it's referring to mystical contemplation, not philosophical contemplation or speculation. Now, the two may be very much related. However, understand that the Rambam is not a mystic, but he's a philosopher. And so, as it says, that 4 entered into the orchard. And even though they were great Gedolei Yisrael, they were great leaders, they were great wise men, Lo kulam haya bahen koach leida ulahasig kol hadivarim al buriyan. They did not have all the power to understand and comprehend all the things clearly, al buriyan, which means clearly. Va'ani omer, and therefore I say, and at this point you should be saying to yourself, this only accentuates and attenuates the question, well then why, Rambam, are you presenting me with this information? If Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, ben Azai, and ben Zoma all failed in their pursuit of this discipline, and they left in some way, they were damaged by this study, and only Rabbi Akiva came out unscathed. So then why are you presenting this to me at the beginning of Mishnah Torah? So therefore, Vani Omer, She'ein roi l'tayil b'pardes elamishin ismali kreisel lechem u'basar. I say that one should not be strolling through this orchard unless he has first filled his belly with bread and meat. What does that mean? V'lechem u'basar huleida ha'asr v'hamuter v'chayotzi b'hem mishar ha'mitzvahs. What it means to fill your belly first with bread and meat means to get the basic staples of a Jewish diet. What are the basic staples of a Jewish diet? No halacha. What's mutter and what's asr. Then after you've gotten a full belly of that, then you can start delving into philosophy. V'yafal pisha dvarim elu davar katam karu asam chachamim shaharei amru chachamim davar gadol ma'isa merkava davar katan havayas davaya v'rava. So the Rambam challenges that. He says, I don't understand. Why? How can you tell me that when we talk about sequential acquisition of knowledge, you should first fill your belly with halacha and only then begin studying physics and metaphysics? After all, Chazal tell us that the definition of davar gadol, a great part of Torah knowledge, is Maisa Merkava, and a minor part of Torah knowledge are the Talmudic discussions of Abai and Rava. So then surely we should argue that philosophic knowledge is more important than Talmudic knowledge. Would you not say that, says the Rambam? Comes along the Rambam and he answers, Afal pichein ru'uyin hein lahakdiman. But nevertheless, one still has to start off with halacha. Why? Shehein miyashvin da'ato shel adam tchila. Because they will put your mind in the right sort of frame. You'll be primed once you know halacha properly to be able to enter into the pardes and to be able to delve into physics and metaphysics. Va'od, another explanation, shehem hatova hagdola shehishpia HaKadosh Baruch Hu liyishuv ha'olam hazeh kidei linchol chayei ha'olam haba. It is the greatest gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to us in inhabiting this world, because in giving us the Torah, which contains the halachas of Abai and Rava, just basically halachic knowledge, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the means whereby we could attain Olam Haba in a much more easy fashion. Ve'efsher sheyeda'em hakol katan v'gadol ish v'isha ba'al lev rachav u'ba'al lev katzar. And the Havayas of Abai and Rava, Talmudic knowledge, halachic knowledge, is something that everyone has an entree to. It doesn't matter how smart you are, he says, katan v'gadol, both small people and big people. In other words, people of lesser knowledge and people of greater knowledge or intellectual capacity, both men and women, both people who have broad hearts and people who have narrow hearts, meaning people who have narrow capacity for being receptive to ideas. And therefore, says the Rambam, it's more important for you to study halacha before you study physics and metaphysics. So has he answered any of our questions yet? Has he explained what this is doing at the beginning of Mishnah Torah if you're first supposed to study halacha? This is a mystery that really defies explanation, but we're going to offer an explanation in order to be able to answer the two primary questions that we've asked. One is, how can the Rambam reveal that which the Mishnah says not to reveal publicly? And number two, how can the Rambam put this as the very first thing that a person is supposed to know, read in Mishnah Torah, if he himself says that it's more important to study halacha first and put this on the back burner until your mind is expanded? And what some of the Meforshim speak out, and this is really the only way to understand it, in my opinion. If you have another answer, please feel free to speak to me later. But really the only way to understand it is that the Rambam knows that there are multiple levels of understanding of the realities of this universe, both on a metaphysical and a physical level. And he feels that a person has to at least have a modicum, a minimum amount of knowledge about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his world in order to properly have the ahava and the yira that is a prerequisite to the study of Torah. But that is not called tiyul b'pardes. That is not called walking into the orchard. because you're just looking at the orchard from a distance. You just have a smattering. You just have a little taste about the world. It's like watching Nova or the Discovery Channel. That doesn't make you an expert in physics. It doesn't make you a physicist just because you watch something about our galaxy on the Discovery Channel, right? But you've got to, at least when you watch something on the Discovery Channel, you can say, wow, that's amazing. And so the Rambam says you need to have some introduction to these ideas in order to be able to have the proper ahava and yira of Hashem to start you off in a career of studying halacha, in studying Torah. And that's why I'm putting it here first. But put off the rest of it. Fill up your belly with bread and meat, and then when you finish studying halacha, you can come back and get into the pardes. So that answers both of our questions. The Rambam is not expounding publicly on the esoteric level that would preclude most people from being able to understand. Everything that he presents in the first 4 chapters of Mishnah Torah are accessible to everyone, both people with broad hearts and narrow hearts. But he's telling us that there's something far deeper here, and that's why he said in a few places in the first 4 chapters, realize that this is just a drop in the ocean. This is your beginner course. This is the Discovery Channel 1-hour program on something that you have to go to university for a decade in order to understand it properly. Am I making myself clear? Okay. We still have one question that we haven't answered. What does this have to do with Torah? And can you truly say that studying Aristotelian physics and metaphysics is a prerequisite for the study of Torah? That has not been addressed by these concluding paragraphs of the first 4 chapters of Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah. But we will see that the Rambam does have a very interesting explanation to this.
He seems to have similar cautions that the mystics have about learning the mystical side of Torah.
Absolutely. He understands that the 4 people that entered into the Pardes, and only one person emerged out unscathed, is philosophical speculation, not the study of mysticism. The Rambam thinks that mysticism is not real. The only thing that's real is contemplating the true reality of the universe using philosophical terminology, using philosophical methodology. That for him is the really deep stuff. Okay. Now, the next part that I want us to see, to be able to finish answering this question and trying to make sense of where the Rambam is coming from, is we're going to take a look at the Hakdama of the Rambam to the Mishnah. The Rambam, as we know, wrote a commentary to the Mishnah, and he has an introduction to the entire commentary, and we're just going to learn a couple of paragraphs from that Hakdama. And in these couple of paragraphs, which we've selected carefully sections from, we're going to see how what the Rambam's approach is to Agadata, to those non-halachic components of the Talmud are. So let's take a quick look. So the Rambam says, V'haravi. The 4th type of Torah study are drashos hamatimos le'inin kol perek she'izdamein sheroi bo hadrash. He says, drashas, ideas that one can expound upon from an ideological standpoint. V'ha'inyan haravi hazeh klomar hadrash shehuva haTalmud. When we talk about these homiletics that are brought down by the Talmud, ein lachshov shehu kal chashivut. A person should not think that these things are not important. When when we do the Daf Yomi, people are so happy that we're doing Agadata that day because we can zip through it. Our minds only have to be engaged about 50 or 60% instead of the normal 90% in order to understand what's going on. It's a machayah. But the Rambam tells us, don't think it's kal hachashivut. Don't think it's such a light thing. Don't think it's not important. Or to think that the benefit of these areas of study are minimal. Because those things serve a tremendous purpose. These things are inclusive of extremely esoteric secrets and truly wondrous ideas. Lefi she'im yu'uyan iyun ma'amik ba'osam hadrashos, depending upon how deep you go into those agadita. Yuvan mehem mehatov hamuchlat ma she'in lamayla mimenu. And if you do so, you'll be able to comprehend the ultimate greatest good about Hashem and about His universe, something that is unsurpassable. V'yiskalu mehem min ha'inyanim ha'elokiyim v'inyanim amitiyim kechol asher histiru anshei hamada u'kechol asher kolu bo hafilosofim doroseihem. And not only that, and this is a key line. The Rambam says that if you study Agadita carefully, you'll be able to it'll be revealed to you so many issues of the divine, and so many true things meaning that they're esoteric secrets that will be unlocked for you, and these are things that were hidden by people who are truly in the know, and everything that the philosophers of every generation were able to plumb the depths of. Now, what he's essentially telling us is that Agadita contains deep philosophical secrets. If you're looking for the true meaning of the Agadita, eventually you'll hit pay dirt. You know what that pay dirt will be? You'll hit Aristotle. You'll keep digging and digging into the mud of the Agadita, and eventually you'll hit solid rock, and that rock you'll discover is philosophy. That's the underpinning of that's the deeper meaning of all of the Agadita in Chazal. Now that's an astounding statement, right? Okay, but you see where we're going with this. So now continue along. If you only look at the surface meaning of the words of Chazal in the Agadita, you'll see something that is the most counter-intelligent of anything that can possibly be, the most fanciful stories that you can't even imagine how anyone intelligent could even write such a thing. So the question is, why did Chazal do this? Why did Chazal write things that at the surface look very foolish, but in the greater depths, when you dig deeper, you're eventually able to understand that they're referring to great philosophical secrets? He says, "Ha'echad la'ower havanas haloimdim." He says, one is to arouse the understanding of the students. Vigam l'shaveya, or I think it's l'shaveya or l'shua. I'm not sure. Is it l'shua or l'shaveya? Avi, lamed shin vav ayim, l'shaveya or l'shua? I'm not sure. Einei hakesilim asher lo yaru libotehem leolam. Also to blind the eyes of the fools so that they should not see the greater secrets. Chazal had, according to the Rambam, Chazal had a way of esotericism. They wrote in a way that would cover up the deeper secrets to people who were the uninitiated. And they would write in such a way that only if you were truly wise would you be able to perceive the true meaning, because the information that they wanted to convey was very esoteric and it wasn't meant for everybody. And so that's why they wrote it in a very hidden way, by writing something on the surface that doesn't seem to mean very much, and it's only upon deeper inspection it means something quite deep. And why did Chazal feel a need to hide this information? Because if a person who was foolish, meaning an uninitiated person, not ready to receive this very deep knowledge, were to be exposed to this information, like you can't handle the truth, right? Why? Because it would cause them to go astray from Hashem. Because sometimes the deepest esoteric secrets, when they're exposed to someone who's not yet ready for this information to process it properly, will cause them to misunderstand completely what Hashem is and who He is and so forth. And that's why Chazal say that to an Am Haaretz you're not allowed to reveal a secret. Because their intellects have not yet been attuned properly to be able to receive the deeper truth in its proper fashion. And furthermore, says the Rambam, don't think that the rabbis only hid it from people who were not rabbis. Many times we find, even in the words of Chazal, that the rabbis, even in speaking to each other, spoke in riddles, because they felt that a person that they were speaking to that was even part of the rabbinic community was not ready for a piece of information. So how much more so will something not be recorded in the Gemara itself? Ki inyan, and we're skipping several lines. He says, Ki inyanim eila enam mimashe efshar lelamdam ve'enam nidrashim berabim. And these are things, therefore, are not readily accessible. They're not things that we're supposed to be teaching publicly. Elo romzim aleihem bisfarim remazim nistarim. But rather, they can only be alluded to. V'im heisir Hashem hamasach me'alev misharotzi lefanav acharei shehichshir atzmo b'limudim yavin mehem lefi koach sichlo. It's only with special siyata dishmaya that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will remove the mask off of these ideas if you properly developed your intellect, and then you'll be able to understand them depending upon the level of your intellectual development.
As far as I understand this part, is that the rabbi spoke in a metaphor way to show their idea, but the point is that the simple people, the ignorant, let's say, they will not understand what is going behind it. They'll just take like the story
surface,
and that's all. But the rabbis behind it will understand.
That's right.
So I find here a very nice difference between maybe Rambam and let's say the Hasidut. The Hasidut, when they are trying to say a metaphor, it's not to push away the simple people, but to attract them to inside of the Torah. But Rambam is trying to push them away.
Yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying.
You think that you understand, but you understand nothing.
No, but look, they say about Rabbi Nachman of Breslov stories, they were nice stories, but they were, when you read them at the face value, some of them just, like are folk tales. But then they need deeper analysis, and he was telling something very, very deep. All right, okay, listen. The whole concept of esotericism in any intellectual literature is not something that the Rambam is innovating. This is not a new concept. This was a concept that was known by Chazal as well. There's a whole medrash that Chazal talk about the way that Yoseph and Yehuda were communicating at the beginning of Parshas Vayigash. And they say that Yoseph was communicating on two different levels to Yehuda. He was communicating esoterically. On one level, Yehuda was communicating with Yosef. On one level, Yehuda was trying to be obsequious and very conciliatory and trying to beg for favor. On the deeper level, he was threatening Yosef. They were going to completely destroy all of Mitzrayim. So you have this idea of esoteric communication throughout into all literature, going all the way back to the ancient times. This has been an idea. Ve'ein la'adam la'asot im halimud ve'ha'ishtadlus be'esek ha'torah ela lachabines libo la'Hashem. A person, whenever he's learning Torah and trying to understand the deeper meaning, his whole kavanah should not be, I got to figure out this puzzle, but rather to be able to focus his heart to Hashem. V'yispal lefanav v'yischanein sheyichanehu das. He should daven to Hashem for the siyata dishmaya. And he should beseech Hashem, please Hashem, give me atachonein la'adam das, give me the knowledge. V'yazrehu, v'yigalalo hasodos hakemusim b'kisvei hakodesh. And then if you daven properly, Hashem will help you. Hashem will give you divine aid to be able to understand all of these secrets. K'moshe matzanu, David olav hashalom asakain. David HaMelech davened this way in Tehillim. He says, Galei nai v'abita niflos mitorosecha. David HaMelech, that was exactly what he davened for. He said, Hashem, please open my eyes so that I can see the wonders of your Torah. So, Hashem will reveal what he reveals, and he'll hide what he wants to hide. And sometimes the Talmud will allude to something, and it'll only Hare rak lemi sheshalma da'ato v'noda yisharo kemo shabiru biru masios rabos b'talmud. Sometimes, certain people, only the people who are worthy of understanding will be able to understand these kinds of ideas, as is explained in many stories in the Talmud. V'lochein ein ra'ui la'adam hashalem lefarsein ma sheyada mehasodos, el lemishu hu gadol mimenu okamahu. And therefore, a person who is able to plumb the depths and the esoteric depths of these stories of the Talmud should not reveal them to everybody. You should only reveal them to someone who is a peer or someone who you feel is your intellectual better. Because if revealing it to someone who's not ready for it is not proper. Lefisha im yatzienu lifnei kisil, im lo yiganehu bifanav vaday lo yitav beinav. He says, because if you reveal certain esoteric ideas to someone who's foolish, he may not dismiss it outright, but is certainly not going to find it of any appeal. Ulefichach amar hachacham beoznei kisil al tedaber ki avoz laseichel milecha. And that's why the pasuk says, he says, I think this is Shlomo HaMelech in Mishlei, he says that beoznei kisil al tedaber, do not speak into the ears of the fool, because he will deprecate and disparage all of your wisdom. V'od shehalimud l'rabim lo yitachein el b'derech chida u'mashal kidei lichlol hanashim v'hane'arim haketanim. And furthermore, when you speak publicly, you should make sure that your words are shavu l'chol nefesh, that you appeal to the lowest common denominator, and you should not speak in great depth, because you need to engage everyone that's in the audience, the women, the children, people who are not as literate. Kidei shekeshetagiyah da'atam lishleimus Yedu inyanos amamishalim. And the objective here, of course, is that you allude to something using a parable, and eventually when people develop and grow in their knowledge, they'll be able to reference back to the mashal that you provided, and they'll be able to grow building upon the mashal that you started with. And that's why Shlomo Melech, when he writes Mishlei, he writes that the purpose of writing the book of Proverbs is to be able to get people started on a career of true intellectual growth. Because the first opening is to start by speaking esoterically, using parables, and then that's the first step. That will be the entree to be able to grow further, to be able to understand the true secrets of the Torah. But you can't run until you learn to walk. And so that's where you have to start off. And that's why our sages spoke about these divine issues, these secrets of the divine, these metaphysical ideas, only by allusion. ולכן ראוי לאדם שנזדמן לו מדבריהם דבר שהוא נגד המושכל לפי דעתו, שלא ייחס החיסרון לאוסם הדברים, אלא ייחס החיסרון לשכלו. And therefore, if you ever find something in a Gadata which seems outlandish, which seems to be really ridiculous, don't ascribe to Chazal that they don't know what they're talking about, but rather you have to resign yourself to the fact that there's something very deep here, and I haven't been able to go beyond the surface yet. And this really could help you in any page of Gemara. In any page of Gemara, I guarantee you that where there's a Gadata, you'll find something that seems to be quite counterintuitive, but realize Chazal are in control of the game. ראוי לו להצטער מאוד על כך שלא הבין העניין, עד שנעשו אצלו כל הדברים האמיתיים בתכלית הריחוק. So therefore, and when a person sees something that they say in parable form, and you're not able to understand it, and it looks very ridiculous, then you should feel pained. Not only should you say, I don't get it, you should feel bad that you're not able, that you weren't zoche to understand the real deeper meaning, because you haven't reached that level. Okay. Now, so let's just finish this next paragraph and then we'll move on. Kama chamur yihye matzav mi shelo lamad klal v'lo huchshar b'shum ofen me'ofenei ha'achshara ela ne'etak mecheik imo el cheik ishto. He says, think about for a second the people in this world who really have never had a chance to really delve into the deeper understanding of the world and of knowledge around them. They go from their mother's bosom to their wife's bosom, meaning they go through just the mind-numbing, dizzying process of life without really having a chance to stop and contemplate about the deeper understanding of the issues. Im natzia lefanav she'ela min ha'she'elos ha'elokios ha'kamusos b'drashos ein safek shi'u rechokim be'einav ki rechok shamayim me'aretz. If we try to present such a person who's never really had a chance to really contemplate these ideas, and we start talking to him about some deep esoteric concept, there's no question that this person is going to think that we're from Mars. He's not going to know what we're talking about. And he'll completely block any kind of accessibility to his mind. Lachein tzarich shenikva b'libeinu amitusam una'ayin bahem heitev va'al nemaher laharchik shum davar mehem. We should therefore make sure that we understand everything that Chazal say properly. We should not be quick to be dismissive. Ela kol mashu yirchak be'einenu mashu mehem nargilas atzmenu b'mada'im ad shenavin kavanasam ba'osa ha'inyanim tuchal da'atenu la'avino. But rather what we have to do is we have to frequent ourselves in being able to understand ideas of philosophy. That's what Mada is in the Rambam. We have to try and train ourselves in these kinds of esoteric ideas so that we'll be able to eventually understand what Chazal are saying. Lefi shehem aleim oshalom al afsha yushoktim al limudim v'tovei seichel u'mechsharim v'nischarbu l'anashim gedolim u'pirshu mitay b'sa'olam v'chol asher bo'o hayu mechasim chisaron la'atzmam b'hashva l'kodmeihem. Chazal, despite all of their greatness, considered themselves to be nothing in comparison to those who came before them, so surely we have the right to do that and the obligation to do that as well. Okay, let me just see if I'm missing something. Oh, okay, the last few lines of this paragraph are what I wanted to say. 5 lines from the bottom, he says, Va'amru ein lo lahakadosh baruch hu balome ela arba amos shel halacha. That Chazal tell us that all HaKadosh Baruch Hu has are the 4 cubits of halacha. Now that seems to imply that everything else is unimportant. He says, V'hisponein badvar melu. I want you to think about what that statement means, that all HaKadosh Baruch Hu has are the arba amos of halacha. Shem tevinem kiposhtam yira'u beinecha rechokim ma'od min ha'emes. Because if you think about it carefully, it would seem to be such an outlandish thing to say. Of course there's more important things than just halacha. There are other important things than just halacha. We have to understand the meaning of the universe. We have to understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We can't just focus on Shulchan Aruch. We have to know the very existence of Hashem. Ki'ilu arba amos shel halacha bilbadim atachlis. Is that, you really seriously think that the whole purpose is to just know what your halachic obligations are? Ulazniach shar hamadim v'hachochmos, and to forsake all the other areas of wisdom and knowledge? Ubizman shein va'ever v'shachareihem shelo haisa halacha b'li safek shelo hayaklah HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamo klum. He says like this, what were they learning in the yeshiva of Shein va'ever? You know the yeshiva that they opened? That Shein va'ever, Shem the son of Noach opened, and his grandson Aver, they opened up a yeshiva together. What do you think people were studying? They didn't have halacha back then. There was no halachic knowledge back then. He says, "Avol im tisponin b'dvar melu hisponenus ma'amika timsa b'zeh chacham anifla v'timsa le'ah kol el harbe min hamuskalos." He is not going to tell us the full answer right now, but he says you have to realize if they were studying non-halachic issues in the yeshiva Shein va'ever, what were they studying? They were studying madaf. They were studying philosophy. They were studying ideas about the existence of the universe. They were studying Maisa Bereshis and Maisa Merkava. That's what they were studying in the yeshiva of Shein va'ever. And so therefore you have to understand there's a deeper meaning of Ein lo LaKadosh Baruch Hu ela arba amos shel halacha. He doesn't tell us over here, but there is a deeper meaning. But one thing is clear from the Rambam, is that these endeavors that Chazal present to us in Agadata provide us with a very, very strong foundation. And all we have to do is dig deeply enough, and eventually we discover philosophy. Now, how can it be that Chazal are merely just alluding to philosophical concepts that were invented by Aristotle? That seems to also be problematic. And so that's where we have to get into one more text, and that's going to be the Moreh Nevuchim in the first Chelek. We'll run through it very, very quickly. The Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam writes in the Moreh Nevuchim, he writes, Da ki hachachmos harabos asher hayu b'umasenu ba'amitas elo ha'inyanim avdu ba'orech hazman u'b'shilut ha'umos hasechalos aleinu. He says, I want you to know that a long time ago, we possessed great knowledge. And a great deal of that knowledge was lost because of our exile and our subjugation to the other nations that were much less knowledgeable than we were. And obviously, if you get thrown into a gullus where people are dumb, then no matter how smart you are, you're going to eventually become as dumb as your captor. That's essentially what the Rambam is saying. Uvihiyos hanyanim ha'im bilti mutarim livnei adam kulam kamo shebe'arnu. Because the esoteric knowledge that we possessed when we went into Galus was not something that all Jews possessed. V'lo haya hadavar hamutar lifnei bnei adam kulam. And it was not something that we could freely share with our children and with all of our friends. Ela divrei hasfarim levad. Only thing that we were allowed to share were things that were in print, things that were like in the Chumash. And even Torah Shabbal Peh, that which we have in the Talmud today, was not allowed to be printed, was not allowed to be written down. So, le'inyan hamispashet ba'uma, dvarim shamarti l'chalpi al peh yat Torah shalomrim b'ksav. That because there was an attitude that was pervasive in the eyes of Chazal, that we don't have a right to take that which is oral, an oral tradition, and put it into writing. V'haya zet hachlis hachochma bedas shehu barach mima shenafal bo ba'acharona. That this what he says, v'haya zet hachlis hachochma bedas shehu barach mima shenafal bo ba'acharona. That this is what left us. This great esoteric knowledge left us. Rotzeloma rov hadeos v'histargamus sveikos noflos beloshen hamechubar basefer u'shkaga hischaber lo v'tischadesh hamachlokes bein ha'anashim. We know what happened in Torah Shabbal Peh. We know that it became necessary to write it down because people started to forget. People started to have machloksim. They started to have disputes about what the correct interpretation of the passage was. The shuvam chaburos, the hiskadesh habilbul b'maasim, and people started to become confused in their halachic practice. Al v'nimsar hadavar bazeh kulo lebesin hagadol kamo shebi'arnu b'chibureinu hatalmudiyim kamo sheyareh alav davar haTorah. He says, eventually, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was given permission to write it down, or he ruled that we could write down Torah Shabbal Peh, but in a very limited fashion. Vim Torah Shabbal Peh nafla bo hakpada mehashiro le'ed b'chibur mefursam livnei adam kulam l'mashi yagia bazeh min ha'asei kol sheken shichubar davar me'ilus isrei toya v'yufursam livnei adam kulam. So he says, and if there was a certain desire to not proliferate Torah Shabbal Peh to all human beings and not write it down. So you can imagine how much more was the desire to keep hidden this esoteric knowledge that was not ever written down and was not ever passed around to the rest of the Jewish people. And all that happened throughout the generations of our exile was that individuals in every generation were given this esoteric knowledge. Like the Chazal themselves say, that you can only give over secrets of Torah to someone who is of great knowledge. Or and that's why eventually we lost a lot of our great knowledge. And therefore you'll only find certain allusions to these ideas that are contained within the Gemara and in the Medrash. And they are little tiny kernels of wheat that have huge husks that cover them over. And people just study the husk. They just consume the husk without realizing that there's a kernel of wheat beneath them. So the Rambam is telling us something that he wasn't prepared to tell us in his Mishnah commentary. And what he is telling us is that Greek philosophical knowledge was always with the Jewish people. Because it wasn't originally Greek philosophical knowledge, it was originally esoteric secrets that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had given to us as the chosen people. We were masters of this knowledge, and along the way, because of our exile, we lost it. The Greeks picked it up. And therefore there's nothing wrong with reappropriating that which was originally ours. And that's the Rambam's whole approach to his project of synthesizing philosophy with Torah. It is not that he views philosophy as a foreign ideology or as a foreign body of knowledge, but rather he views it as that which is Sisrei Torah, the hidden secrets of Torah, which were lost to Klal Yisrael and which we recovered thanks to certain writings of the Greeks, which were then passed down to the Muslims. Actually, the way it works is it was first passed from the Greeks to the early Christians, then it was transcribed from the early Christians to the Muslims, and now it's come to us, and we have a right to restore it to its rightful place among the esoteric knowledge of the Jewish people.
That implies that all those nations have that knowledge?
They have some semblance of it, but they made a lot of mistakes. You could have a certain kernel of knowledge, and you could get it wrong. You get certain portions of it right, but you get a lot of it wrong. And that's what the Moreh Nevuchim is dedicated to doing, trying to demonstrate where Aristotle got it right and where he got it wrong. But the parts that he got right are part of the heritage of the Jewish people that have been for centuries, all along, ever since our people began. It's not that he's taking foreign concepts and integrating them, synthesizing. He doesn't view that as his project. He views his project as taking truths, ultimate truths, that were part of the Jewish people's Masorah, and reincorporating them within the fold of the Jewish people. So understand this, in his Mishnah commentary, the Rambam said that Chazal, at some point, most Chazal knew this esoteric knowledge. In Moreh Nevuchim, he's actually much more of a reductionist, and he says that by the time it got to the Talmud, most of the Chachamim didn't understand even what had been lost. And so there are a few kernels here and there, but even the people who shared the kernels themselves may not have even understood what they were sharing.
In the Moreh Nevuchim, how does he view Agadata?
So he's just told you. He just told you how he views Agadata. The purpose of Agadata is that there's something beneath there. Sometimes there is, and sometimes there's just stories, but the people who communicated these stories themselves didn't even know what they were communicating. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi says the same thing in the Kuzari. He says many times Chazal communicated an Agadic passage, and they heard it from their Rebbe, didn't fully understand what its meaning was, but understood that if my Rebbe told me this fanciful story, there must be some depth to it that I'm not following, so therefore I will repeat it, and it was eventually recorded in the Talmud. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi and the Rambam are very much aligned on this area. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi says, we won't read it now, but he says that all esoteric knowledge of physics and metaphysics that is contained among other nations, the Babylonians, the Chaldeans, the Greeks, they got it from the court of Shlomo HaMelech. They got it from Shlomo HaMelech. And what happened was that they plagiarized the knowledge, and they said that they made it up on their own. But the reality is, it started with the Jewish people. We lost it because we went into Golus, because it's the most esoteric knowledge gets lost first. And as a result, our reclaiming of that knowledge and making part of the Mishnah Torah is not a wrong endeavor. It's not sort of like taking something foreign and putting it into Torah. It is Torah.
So he's sifting through this knowledge.
He's sifting through
find which is Torah,
Greek philosophy, and finding which is Torah and which is not Torah. Now, let me leave you with one question, and then we'll go. According to the Rambam, do you say Birkas HaTorah on studying physics?
Yeah.
Leave you with that question.
It seems so.